Hi guys, thank you very much for joining. Welcome back. I have missed you. It's either I've missed you or you've been missing. Either way, it's good to see you and it's good to be back. Okay, so the last video that was uploaded was actually really well received. And right, in that video, you'll hear that it's mentioned in there that so there was a few things that actually popped up whilst making that video. I remember having to start it and restart it before finishing it, and then obviously the content and the body of that video was what emerged from that. But there was something else in that. There was, like I say, in that video, there was other things that kept popping up, and all the content had to be condensed into that one subject. But there were other things, so I'm going to carry on from that and just tell you all the other stuff that came up whilst I was making that. I think there's only a couple of things in there, but this is it. So let's start there with that. So just to recap, then the content and the body of that video was all about these documents here. The 22nd of February 1996. All of these documents here, look, Barry Dorman makes a statement, then Sean Morgan, Keith Moore, and then Stephen Dorman. If you haven't seen that video, please do go and have a look. It's titled The Day and the Date, the actual day and date that Craig Rolfe bought that gun. And in it, I tell you and show you how the date was the 24th of the 11th, 95. I'm not going to spoil it for you. Go and have a look. But it runs through these. Now, as I say in that video, it said that I was looking at other stuff, and all this other stuff came up. So this is what I found. Look, can you remember in that video it says this Keith Moore made this statement, and he is basically saying that he's backing up that the I don't know what to call it, alibi. He's backing up the story of Barry Dorman being with him playing squash that night on the 6th. Remember? And it's that one there, look. The Keith Moore. And then that's that one there. The interesting thing about this is that they're all made on the 22nd. Okay? Now look, there's another one here that's being made on the 22nd. It's sandwiched right here in the middle of these documents. Between Barry's and Stephen Dorman's is Sean's and Keith's. We've seen Keith's. Now I want to look at Sean's. He makes this statement on the 22nd of the 2nd, 96, as it says here at the top. I'll read it out. I might as well. It may not make sense otherwise. Okay, he states, I am an area manager for the Co-op Chemist, and as part of my role I travel all over South Essex. On the 7th of the 12th 95, as a result of media coverage about the murders of a group of men in a Range Rover at Rettington, Essex, I contacted police regarding a vehicle that I'd seen on the 6th of the 12th 95. I know it was the 6th, as it was the day before the news reports of the murders. I recall that about 9:30 in the morning, I was travelling from Tiptree towards the A12 Colchester, bound in my car, a blue-green Vauxhall Cavalier registration N5470CN. Along a road which passes Rivenhall End and joins the A12. Whilst travelling along this road, I crossed a small bridge before meeting the A12 junction. I recall at this time there was quite a bit of traffic due to restricted passing on the bridge, and I was travelling slowly. I remember seeing a blue Range Rover parked on the right hand side of the road in a track which I believe led to fields and a farm. This track was situated near a bend in the road after you cross the bridge heading towards the A12. As I passed the vehicle, I was aware that there were a lot of people in it. I could see that there were two men in the front and also men in the back, but I couldn't describe them any further than that. I recall the driver of the Range Rover was wearing a light coloured top. It was this male, I remember, was looking at my general direction, and it looked like he was following me with his eyes as I drove past them. Because of this, I looked away. I can only add that these men were not old men, but middle-aged. I then drove past them around the bend towards the A12. I never saw them again. At the time of passing the vehicle, I was about 20 feet away and the weather was fine and clear. I wish to add that I have seen footage of the Range Rover involved in the murders being taken away from the scene by police. It was seeing this Range Rover and that it was similar to the one that I had seen on the 6th that prompted me to call the police. I'm unable to give any further details of the vehicle or the persons inside, other than the vehicle was facing towards the road and was parked up and not waiting to pull out, as there were plenty of gaps. It was my belief that they were waiting for someone or something. I know it was about 9:30 in the morning or thereabouts, as I left home in Tolleshunt Major about 9:15, and it was about 15 minutes to get to that location. He signs it SK Morgan. Okay, so I just want you to pay attention to that. Tiptree towards the A12 and Colchester, and the A12 Colchester bound. And not forgetting, it's 9:30 in the morning. This man has spotted a Range Rover, a blue Range Rover, in that area as he's going towards Colchester. He says there he's Colchester bound in his car. The blue-green Vauxhall Cavalier, but he's coming from Tiptree. Okay, so googling that and putting it into maps, this is Tiptree, okay, and he's coming this way. The A12 is here. This road here is the A12. Look, so he's this is where he lives, and it takes about 15 minutes to get to this road and to this junction that he's talking about. I'm not going to be able to pinpoint exactly where he saw this Range Rover, but what's interesting about this is the area that we're in. Okay, this is Tiptree, this is the A12, but look where we are. Look, if I just zoom up here and come up here, look, zoom out a little bit, look where we are here. Look, Marks Tay. I'm sure I'm pronouncing that right. I would personally like to call it Marks T, but Marks Tay apparently is how you pronounce that. But it's right there, look. Now this is where Darren Nichols says he met Mick that night, that evening. Now this bloke's statement is saying that he's seen a Range Rover up here. Look, it's literally just here, look. It's Tiptree, and here's Marks Tay, right near it, look. Now, there's no clarification whatsoever whether it was our Range Rover, but we're in the same vicinity. And what triggers in my own personal mind and my own memory is how Darren Nichols has been mirroring, his statement is full of the same incidences. That's all I can call them. That's all I can try and demonstrate and try and project over to you, the audience, what I'm talking about here. It's just full of the same thing. Like, for example, Pat Tate's VW Passat. Pat Tate was in a VW Passat that night. It's proven with Barry Dorman's statement. Darren Nichols says he was in a VW Passat himself. We've been through this before. He talks about, you know, picking people up, and this is the same as what Billy Jasper had said. This just adds a tiny bit more fuel to that concept and that theory that Darren Nichols is just picking out different bits from different people's statements and placing it and piecing it all together to make a story that fits the narrative to get Mick and Jack locked up. This here is another bit. Marks Tay, right? Marks Tay, it could be something like that. The police know that Tony Pat, Craig were there. They were there up near Marks Tay. So you've got to say you met Mick there in Marks Tay. Does that make sense? Anyway, look at that how you will. But look what Darren Nichols does around 9:30. Sorry, I got that completely wrong. It's not 9:30. Okay, so look, so we're coming to the phone records here, and this is the day of. Okay, so we're talking about 9:30. Our Range Rover has been spotted up there by near Marks Tay, and it is of significance because that's where Darren Nichols says he was at some point in the day. Later that day, he says, but if this is the truth and they were all up there in Mark's tape, he's never going to say that because it's the truth. Do you know what I mean? He's going to be hiding away from the truth. He would have buried this in the back of his mind a long time ago. But let's pretend it is the truth and it is Tony, Pat and Craig, and they are up there near Mark's Tay meeting somebody. Their phones are active around this time, 9:30, 10 o'clock, 10:30, 11. It would seem, wouldn't it, that if Darren Nichols is talking about Mark's Tay and they were up there in Mark's Tay at this time, something's been arranged, or they've met each other and something has happened, something's been organised, because at 9:30, 10 o'clock comes and goes, and then Darren Nichols at nearly 1 o'clock starts shouting for Mick. Look, he's desperate to get in touch. Phones him once, twice in the same minute, again the next minute. He's phoning home the next minute. He's back on the phone to Mick Steele. Look, he's absolutely desperate to get in touch with Mick Steele. Mick Steele then looks like he answers the phone and then gets in touch with Jack. It's not beyond the realms of possibility that Darren Nichols met up with Tony, Pat and Craig that day, did a meeting with them, arranged a load of stuff with them, okay, and he's hiding that. The only people who can back his story up are dead. So he's just leaving that bit out, you know what I mean? He's just not saying anything about any meeting that he had with these three. Reading between the lines and putting two and two together as he's talking about these different cars, these, and mirroring different people's statements, it would seem he's lying. It would seem he's bullshitting his way through this. And the question you've got to ask yourselves is, why would he want to lie? And, technically, is he lying if he's not saying anything? If he's just leaving bits out, if he's just not saying anything, is he actually lying? There's nowhere in any of his statements, in any of his story, has he ever mentioned meeting up with Tony, Pat and Craig that day. Is he lying if he just doesn't mention that? That's something to think about, isn't it? So, overall, bottling that up, the bottom line is the question, could Darren Nichols have met up with them? He's talking about Mark's T. There was a sighting of a Range Rover up there by Mark's T in the morning. And not forgetting, I nearly forgot, that's quite ironic, isn't it? Don't forget that it's that Tony, Pat and Craig we've got proof in a document, I suppose, in a way. I don't know whether to take it as, with a pinch of salt or not, but we've got documentation and stories of Tony, Pat and Craig and Bernie looking for that cannabis that was dropped in a lake that Pat thought there was still there. It's considered that they may have been in Rettendon that night because what Bernie actually says the week prior to their murders, they were there. Actually, that's just made me think. Bernie's actually made it public that he hasn't seen them after a certain date, which would then class the document that's in his own book as a bit of bollock. Hang on, let me just fish that out. Right, okay, I've actually forgot what I was saying now, but this is what I'm gonna, when I go through the editing, I suppose I'm gonna have to try and piece this together. I was looking for this bit. Oh yeah, I remember now. So Bernie's actually recently posted this. This is public. I'm not infiltrated Bernie's public profile and then bringing this out here. This is publicly, announced on his page, so it's available for anybody to see anyway. Bernie has written this, and he says there's a bit of useless information. My photo was taken about 25 years outside Rackhouse in Basildon in November 1995. Betts had died the week before, and the night of the photo I walked out of Rackhouse. Ironically, I went to the club in Southend they're now filming in, and Tucker, Tate and Rolf were there. There was a bit of a bad atmosphere as their smuggling pot was falling apart. Tate smoothed everything over, but when they walked out, I thought, I'm not leaving things at that, so I went outside. They were in the Range Rover next to where that wreck house sign was, where the wreck house sign had been painted in Southend for the film. We spoke, and eventually they drove off. That was the last time I ever saw them. It will be odd returning to that location with that sign there. This is what I was talking about, actually. You know, I feel a bit bad saying that this could... There's Bernie talking a bit of bollock. I personally can only go by what I'm seeing, can't I? It just recalled in my own memory that he wrote that, but then he says in his own book that he was up in Rettendon with Tony Pound Craig that week, the week they were killed, looking for this dope. You know, I could be wrong there. I mean, there aren't any dates in there. He says the week after, so I'm thinking still in November. It was a long time ago. I shouldn't really do this, you know, picking this out to be a bit of bollock, but a little bit of discrepancy, I suppose. This document that I'm looking at here, by the way, is that document sent to John Worms, and it's about the murder suspect being Bernie. And in it we've been through this before, and in this bit it says that Bernie says that he was with Tony Pound Craig looking for this dope that had been found in there. It is there. Look, the purpose of that visit was, according to Mahoney, was to look for £500,000 worth of cannabis. Yeah, look, and it's in his book. So he's in his own book. He's saying he was with them, and you know, there on Facebook just recently he said that the last time he saw them was just after he left. So there's a bit of discrepancy. You know, it was a long time ago. You can't snub. I just saw that word there, snubbed. You can't snub Bernie for making these mistakes so later on. You know what I mean? But the point of that is that this Range Rover has been seen up by Marks Tay, and it could be possible that they're looking for this cannabis. You know, it says that he was in a field, parked up by the entrance to a field or a farm, and you know, lakes. That's what they're looking for. They're looking for the cannabis in those lakes. Is it possible that they were up there in Marks Tay on that day, looking for this cannabis still, and it just so happens that at night they went down to this other place, just another place, looking for it, looking for this 500 grand's worth. Again, I can't stress enough how these statements, I was going to use the term taken with a pinch of salt. You can't take, well, again, I was going to say, can't take them seriously. You need to do one or the other, or you can't do one or the other. Because this man he's taken all this from memory. To test yourself, if you were in a car yesterday, can you remember what the car was that went past you at the junction you were at? You know, when you were driving and you came to a junction, you were bound to come to a junction. Can you remember how many cars that went past you? Can you remember the colours of them? Can you remember the make and the models of them? Can you remember if you passed any cars along the way? It's hard, isn't it? I went out for a run this morning. I'm testing myself now. I can't remember any car that I passed. I know I did. I can't remember the make and models and the colour of any of them. I passed people and all sorts. You know, I can't remember any of their faces. I can't remember. I know they're there, but it's just that nothing was happening. You know what I mean? Nothing was happening for me to take notice. And it's the same for this bloke. He's not looking out for this Range Rover. It wouldn't have been this. You know, look, I'm keeping that in my mind because it looks suspicious. He even admits it himself that he saw it on the news. The murders, the story of these murders came through. He saw that this Range Rover was on the back of it. He saw that it was the same model, and then it triggered his memory. You know, it would be. I have to suggest, wouldn't you, that he would have completely forgot about that. It would have just fell out of his mind. It probably did. As soon as he went past them, you know, even half a minute later, he would have just forgot about it. He's never going to see him again. He's never going to see it again. It wasn't a thing. It was something he passed whilst he was driving. But it meant something to him because he does recall that the driver had a light top on, and there were loads of people, he said. There were a lot of people in it. Okay, so moving on from that, let's just quickly, again, look, this is what I was talking about in the previous video. Like, all these different things popped up. Look, this is Barry Dorman's first statement, look, and this is where he makes that in-depth statement because he's been arrested for murder. In this, he's saying that on the 6th, on the morning of the 6th, Tony Pound Craig are with Peter Cuthbert. So that's, look, 4 people come to that address, the garage. Now, no matter how you cut it, that would seem like a lot of people. Even this man, Barry Dorman here, saying that all 4 of them came to the garage. Even that just seems quite a lot of people, doesn't it? You know? So having 4 people around a Range Rover, especially the size of these people as well, because they're big people. I'm not saying that it adds to the amount of people or the how it looked. You know, you don't start seeing double just because somebody's big, but it just puts a different emphasis on how many people there are because of the size of the people. You know what I mean? 4 big people could actually be construed as 5 smaller people. Do you see what I mean? But piecing that all together, summarizing this, okay, this whole video, the concept of the video, the subject of the video is that this man has seen our Range Rover up near Marks Tay. This is where Darren Nichols says he was later in that day, meeting Mick. Mick obviously says none of that happened. Okay, we've got proof here from Barry Dorman, who is making these statements as well. Don't forget that statement, the one that's seen this Range Rover, is sandwiched right in the middle of Barry Dorman's and Keith Moore's and Stephen Dorman's. They're all being questioned on the same day. So you could say that this bit of the story is involving all these people. They're all here being collaborated together. You know what I mean? They're all in it together. They're all giving these stories. It could mean that the police have actually gone, right, question these people here, all 4 of these people on the same day. Give me what they say. Keith Moore's making an alibi, apparently, saying, yeah, Barry Dorman was absolutely with me playing squash. This is saying, yeah, well, I saw a Range Rover up there by Marks Tay, and there were a lot of people there. Could that be Barry Dorman? You know what I mean? One of those people, could it be Barry Dorman was there? In my because Darren Nichols says that he was there in Marks Tay, he's the only one also who says he was at the lane later that evening. He's the only person who has admitted being at Workhouse Lane. The only one. Jack hasn't admitted it. Mick hasn't admitted it. Tony Pound Craig were there, but they are dead to admit it. There was nobody else. Just Darren Nichols is the only person to admit it. A bit suspect that he was with 3 people earlier that day working apparently in somewhere called Sunbury-on-Thames in London for the whole afternoon, and then later on, as he's arrested and put into the witness protection program, he's saying that he took 3 people to that lane. I mean, doesn't that just tell you that it was Darren Nichols and these 3 people he was with all day? You know what I mean? One of those people he was with in Sunbury Thames, the ones that he was with there, is one of the killers. You know what I mean? Also suspicious that all of those people were named apart from one person. Also, that this bloke that hasn't been named, who was with Darren Nichols that day, is a big bloke. Apparently 6'4", massive. But nobody can remember his name. And we've got a size 14 print in the lane. You don't have to be a rocket scientist, do you, to know that that is it. That's it. I mean, you can argue, can't you, that Mick set that up? Well, Mick actually, that's what Darren Nichols is saying that happened. Mick did set it up. That's what happened. Yeah, he set it up that they were going to rob somebody from London. This London firm, this geezer from London. You know, isn't it just obvious that Darren Nichols was in London with these people. He even admits to being there in Sunbury Thames with these people. Of all the cars as well, he says it's a red Volkswagen Golf. This is what I'm talking about, mirroring. This is the same car that Sarah said Pat was in earlier. Pat took it from Sarah and then, you know, did whatever he did with it. Darren Nichols is saying that he was also in a red VW Golf. It's just a bit weird. It's just weird and a bit sketchy and a bit dodgy that Darren Nichols is saying all these same things that somebody, the only person who can back it all up, is dead. You know what I mean? Pat Tate was in this VW pass up. He's dead. He can't say that he was. He was in this VW Golf that Sarah says he was in. But Pat's dead. He can't say whether he was or not. So Darren Nichols is saying that he was in all these cars. The only person who could back it up is dead. But going back to that, look, Mick Steele has set this up, that Pat's going to get killed for ripping these people off. Okay? Mick has set it up with Darren Nichols. Doesn't that make sense? You know what I mean? It's like Tony, Pat and Craig arrive at that lane, go in to meet Darren Nichols. Darren Nichols is the one who knows where this cannabis is. It's where it was dropped. Darren Nichols knows that there's a pond here because maybe he uses it. Maybe he's part of that fishing syndicate, the shooting syndicate. He's shot up there. Whatever has happened, he said, let's meet there. But it's not the setup that Mick's going to set them up to lure them there to kill them. He set it up with Darren Nichols because Darren Nichols is with these blokes. Darren Nichols has gone with these blokes. These are the blokes that Pat's going to rip off. They get there, right, and that's it. You're not fucking doing it. You're not ripping us off. You're a fucking nightmare to deal with. You've done too much. This is the bloke that you're going to rip it off. Here, geezer, here's your gun. You know what I mean? Just fucking do them. It's fucking obvious to me, I think, that that's what happened. Look, and it all stems back to that, the video I've just recently done, you know, it's in the last 5 to 10 videos, I can't remember which one it is, but it's called This Is What I Think Happened Now, and eventually it backs into that, you know. For some reason it's obvious to me that that's what happened. You know, where do people, where am I supposed to go with that? You know, what am I supposed to do with that? Now, it's a bit too obvious that that's what happened. Okay, now, what now? I understand that there's actually no definite proof that that is what happened, but it's blatant. It still puts Mick and Jack in the clear. It isn't Mick who was the killer. It isn't Jack who was the killer at all. They're both out of it. It was Nichols. Nichols admits to being there. Nichols admits to being that getaway driver. He admits to being with people that day. He admits that he picked them up and went with them that day to that lane. It's just a bit suspect that that person, that the one that I'm considering and suggesting he is the shooter, he hasn't been named by anybody. None of the people they were with that night. You know, none of them know his name. Isn't that a bit dodgy? It's a bit suspect and a bit fucking obvious. Anyway, I'll leave that there. That's I'll see you in the next one if there is one. Please take care. If I don't see you before, Merry Christmas and Happy New Year, and try and have as best one as you can. Please don't hound me if I do manage to get some other videos out between now and then. I'm just saying it whilst I can. You understand that? Okay, I'll see you. Take care of yourselves.